Good morning. This is Ken Waddell from the Neepawa Banner and Neepawa Press, and I have with me Owen Devereaux, our reporter and news guy and sports guy all rolled into one, and Kate Jackman Atkinson, our editor for the Press and the Banner. And this morning we're going to lead off with a topic that Owen has kind of developed a little bit and has some opinions on, and I think they're pretty valid points that he has. Owen, what have you been looking at in the community here that's maybe a bit of interest to people this week?
Oh, thanks, Ken. First off, I can't take credit for the story. It was written by John Drinkwater. He went down to this event, was doing some wonderful coverage of it. It's the annual marketing gala that happens for the Westman region.
Tribute to Tourism Awards is the official name.
Oh, yeah. Now, what people might not be familiar with, if you're not familiar with it, as Kate explained, it's about sort of recognizing those throughout the Westman region who are doing a remarkable job of promoting themselves, essentially. This year there were some really good award winners, a name that comes up several times over the last few years, and we've had some dealings with him, we've talked with him. Vern May, formerly of Minnedosa, he's moved on to a new job in Portage la Prairie.
Economic Development Officer.
For PRED, that's correct. And he won for Minnedosa's social media campaign, which has really been exceptional over the last year. In 2016, he won as well. Other communities that won this year were Carberry's Agricultural Society and Races, Carberry's Men and Women's Curling Club as well.
Yeah, they went in the partnership category, didn't they?
They did, and it was really exceptional, some of the work they've been doing to get the message out there. Now, you've probably noticed something. There was one community that was not mentioned whatsoever. Now, that was Neepawa. This story isn't about Neepawa.
No, not at all.
That's part of the problem. This is just opinion. This does not represent Ken Waddell. This does not represent Kate Jackman Atkinson, and it does not represent the Neepawa Banner or the Neepawa Press. This is my opinion. I'll take the heat for it if I have to, but point blank, there is a serious problem right now with getting Neepawa's message out to outlying communities and to the world. The fact is, we had no representation in the 2017 gala. We had no representation at the 2016 gala. Sometimes, I'm sorry, I just wonder, why does the representation of Neepawa hate Neepawa? It feels that way. We can't get our message out there. Is it not enough money, or is it just a sense of we don't need to? We're a hub for the region. People come to us. It's that type of mentality, it's that type of thinking that gets communities in trouble in the long run. You might not notice it this year, you might not notice it next year, but sooner or later it catches up with you. That's concerning to me. And again, I don't want to take away anything whatsoever from the great work that Minnedosa and the great work that Carberry has been doing. Previous years as well, On and 01 in 2016.
Yeah, and certainly these are communities we cover, and we're happy to see their success. But there's a big omission there. There's a big, for a regional center, there's a big hole in the lack of our presence there.
Yeah. I think that when you bring up a topic like that, the old history thing starts to kick in. And back about 25 years ago, there was an economic, there was a TANA, Tourism Association, Neepawa area, and it was quite active, met regularly, had representation from business, from the town, from the Chamber of Commerce. Then the Neepawa Lily Festival was formed about 20 years ago, but prior to the festival there was organized bus tours of the community where they could book them through a contact person in the community. Then there was the 17-year run of the Lily Festival.
And if I'm correct, I believe the Lily Festival was at least nominated for one of these awards once.
Yes.
I remember.
Yes.
I remember covering the gala one year, and I don't believe that they won, but they were nominated.
Oh, they did win. Won a couple of times actually, a different award. Maybe not that one, but there was awards. Because I know the pictures were in the Lily Festival office on the wall there, and the coverage was in the paper. Now we're talking, you've been around as a paper about 10 years now, so we're talking maybe before that. But you've touched on a very good point there, Owen. I think there is a little bit of self-hate goes on.
Well, let me, if I may interject for a moment, Ken. with you having been on the other side of this, a representative for the community of Neepawa on the political standpoint, let me ask your opinion on this. Whose priority is it? When you look at what Minnedosa's done, it was the municipality, those officials who took the lead with that by hiring Vern. But with Carberry, it was local clubs that took the lead. Whose responsibility is it to promote Neepawa?
Well, I think it's it's a combination. The impetus has to come from the local organizations, but it's the role of the municipality or the town to provide some encouragement and official sanctioning and yes, some money. And the town used to put money into the Lily Festival. Of course, when nothing arose from the ashes of the Lily Festival, when it was torched, there was no place to put the money, and of course they aren't going to run around offering money. That said, I don't think that the town, whether it's now or when I was mayor, did nearly enough in tourism. And there's more to tourism than what meets the eye. I mean, we can go way back to the days when the Lake Irwin campground was closed down, which I also think was a big mistake. It was a huge mistake. There was a number of reasons for it, but it was a huge mistake.
Well, quickly chime in on that. Talking to friends that I have in outlying communities, they have no idea that Lake Irwin even exists in Neepawa, to be honest. It's that bad.
Yeah, and it can be used for boating, and certainly it can be used for fishing. It's not just a residential place, but it's become mostly a residential place. And that was part of the problem with the campground. But I think that there's a general hesitancy, I guess. There seems to be a bit of a gray cloud over Neepawa all the time, and it's very, very frustrating for people who want to get things done. And I say that I lay some blame at the foot of the council, even the councils that I served as the head of in two different terms, that we didn't do enough, and certainly the council today isn't doing enough in terms of promoting Neepawa.
Let me just, one last thing here on this, Ken. I don't want it to seem like I am ragging on council. They're doing the best they can, and they are doing good things. A lot of people don't notice that because the only people who actually show up for council meetings are myself and Nikki from NAC-TV. So the community itself has got to pick up the bootstraps as well and start paying a little more attention, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And it's lots of food for thought there. So maybe we'll get some feedback from our viewers or from our readers and get some ideas. But there's a tremendous amount of potential here in Neepawa that's yet untapped, and so I think we've got lots of work to do. So now, Kate, you were looking at or working on the youth forum. What did you find there?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a grade 10 student from NACI named Kaylin Hankey, and at the time she had just come back from participating in a youth forum. It was called Canada 150 and Me. And it's really interesting. They held 4 of these across Canada. The one she attended was in Halifax. And in total, 150 kids, that's it, from across the country participated in one of these 4 forums. So she, along with 35 other students, went to the forum in Halifax, which focused on immigration and diversity. The kids were selected. They had to complete a project online. It was a multimedia project. She was the only student from the area, from our coverage area, which is a pretty wide area of Manitoba, who was selected to go. And I talked a little bit to her about the week that she spent in Halifax, learning about immigration issues of the past. The forum itself took place at the Pier 21 Museum, which is certainly steeped in, if you want to talk about Canadian immigration history, it's pretty steeped in that. And they had a presentation by some recent, at a local immigrant settlement services organization. They had a presentation by some recent immigrants from Syria who talked about kind of the issues facing immigrants today. They talked a little bit about some historical immigration to the country, which we maybe forget about. They saw some historic First Nations areas. They saw some settlements that were inhabited by Black Nova Scotians. You forget that a lot of freed slaves and escaped slave and freed slaves lived in Canada. So that was sort of it sounded like a really interesting trip. I know, talking to her about it, it was pretty eye-opening. And she said that it was really encouraging to see the number of kids that are looking to make a positive change in the world. And I think that's always good news for our country.
Cool. I read your write-up on that. It was pretty interesting. I haven't checked it out, but I'm pretty sure that not only my father but all my grandparents would have come through Pier 21.
Yeah.
It seemed everybody who came to Canada had to go through there.
Yeah. Well, I talked to, in a completely unrelated story, there's a group of local 4-H students that are headed to the East Coast, and they are going to be stopping at the Pier 21 Museum. And I know a few of them had relatives that came to Canada via Pier 21. So certainly it's one thing that connects a lot of people across this wide country.
Yeah. It's great to hear that level of engagement in the next generation, though. I mean, you hear so much about that disconnect for the younger, and it's good to see that that's not the case.
Yeah, that's why I love stories like this. They're very encouraging.
Yeah. Now, earlier, Owen, you were talking about the council doing some good things, and you have a couple of topics there where they've taken some initiative, and so you want to review that for our viewers?
That's right. Something that is great to see, Ken, that they moved forward on. Beautiful Plains Museum, big part of our community, already has some federal designations. They're getting a little bit of a local designation that's going to pave the way, make things a little bit easier for them to get a little bit of provincial and federal money. On Tuesday the 6th, Town Council gave them a bylaw designating them as a site of agricultural or historic value. Essentially what that title allows them to do, as I said, is they get to go after some money now for some much needed improvements. They've done a great job stretching their budget as best they can. Kate has done several stories on them over the years, talking about all the great work that the volunteers have been doing there. And it's wonderful to see that this is going to give them a little bit of an advantage, a little bit of a leg up in the near future.
No, they're kind of looking at a capital expansion project, if I remember correctly. I think that they're still looking to do some expansion. And to my mind, I find it surprising that they didn't have this designation before.
They did have similar style designations. Really all this does is this allows them to go after some new grant money and some new funding. So in terms of anything along those lines, this is a huge step forward for them.
Good news for them.
Yeah, the previous designation was a National Railway Heritage Site. And they've had that for quite a few years because it's the former CN. And then I always get mixed up, I think it was Grand Trunk or Grand Northern, I can't remember which was the first that came, but that was the second railway, of course, to come to Neepawa. The first one was the CPR, and that station is long gone. It was torn down in 1971, and some of the material was used to construct the Yellowhead Centre.
Okay, where was that one located?
It was located right up where the siding is at the north end, right on Railway Avenue. There was a station right there.
That's a nice designation, but that doesn't pay the bills. Fortunately, this one, it sounds like, is going to allow them to get a little more revenue.
Sure. And then there was a recycling initiative they did, Recycle My Cell. What's that all about?
It's a national program, actually. It's been ongoing in several other communities across western Manitoba.
And we're talking about mobile devices, not, rooms with bars, right?
Well, no. We're talking politics, so be careful.
No, fortunately, it's more about digital cell phones, going all the way back to pagers.
Wow, I wonder how many of those are kicking around in people's top drawers.
I still got mine right here. So.
I have a Palm Pilot.
You could recycle that.
I'm not going to. That's my alarm clock. I'm not giving that up. It still runs.
If anyone has, other than the Palm Pilot, and
that Ken doesn't want to give up. I think they take Palm Pilots, just Ken doesn't want to part with his.
Part with my Palm Pilot.
Pretty much all the way to the old brick phones from the early 90s. If you got one of those as well, you can put that in. You go down to the town office on Hamilton, and you can just go in. There's a bin that's there set up right now, and anything will be recycled. It doesn't end up in the landfill. It's a really smart initiative to be involved with.
They're taking accessories too, right? If you've got some hands-free or some chargers. I know I've got a lot of chargers for phones that I don't have around anymore.
Yeah. I know sometimes it seems like we're ragging on the council, but this is the type of initiative that's not sexy, it's not front page, but it is something that's very important. It's great to see them being proactive in these types of endeavors.
Oh, and there's something that they're doing that wasn't on your list. I don't know if you can fill us in on that, but there's a lot of digging and scratching going down at the flats, and cement being poured, and the only thing I've heard about that is, oh my God, is it going to be done by July 1st? And why didn't they use some of that money to fill the potholes? But there's got to be more to that story.
Well, now I'm feeling a little offended, Ken, because I did have a little mention in that in a council story we did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know, but they didn't do it on TV. So
All right.
If it's not on TV, it doesn't count.
Oh. They're doing this. It's part of the Canada 150 initiative.
Okay.
It's going to be part of the Trans-Canada Trail, actually, that is stretching all across the nation. It's a little sort of offshoot of it. So people walking the trail can do a lap around the flats there and head back down the trail. It's something they're very excited about. As you said, some people are wondering why the heck. It's not my place to say. They feel like it's something that assists with the community, so more power to them for trying to do something like that.
Another place we're seeing some work around town is some work being done on the former Eastview Lodge property.
Yes.
I know I've had a couple people ask about that, and that's a subdivision, right?
Oh,
Are they
yes,
servicing
yes.
it?
Again, the council story from about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. They finally moved ahead. I believe it's, off the top of my head, I think it was 7 sub-developments
Yeah,
that were
that
going
sounds
in
about
there.
right.
Yep. So it's great to see. This is a community that is growing, a lot of new families coming in, so we need to adapt, and this is them moving forward on it.
Okay. Well, Kate has the one who makes up these lists every week, and the next one she's got there is about my column. Now, I don't know, do you really want me to talk about my column?
Well, we've got to keep the letters to the editor coming in, so.
Oh, come on, Ken. We can't do all the heavy lifting here. Come on.
Well, I did 2 weeks of recycling. That kind of got some letters going. And then we've got this whole thing about Robert Falcon Ouellette stood up in Parliament last week and suggested that all the languages, or a lot more languages, should be used in Parliament. And I take exception to that in my column, because I think that we've got 2 official languages in Parliament, and there's at least 60 other languages used in Canada. I don't think that Parliament is the place for it. But the point is that there's a lot bigger issues, I think, to worry about than that. And I go back to my old one that I keep harping at, and that is that we don't have clean water in a lot of communities, and we're spending time, in my opinion, wasting time on issues such as more languages in the House of Parliament than we're looking at getting proper drinking water and sanitation and even transportation to the various communities. I don't think right now that the Churchill, who are completely cut off from a rail line and are totally dependent on barges coming around from Montreal through the Hudson's Bay, or the air freight, are too worried about how many languages are being spoken in Parliament. I think there's a lot of misdirected effort on that. So I took a shot at that. Somebody wants to take a shot at me, that's fine. We'll, as long as you stay legal and moral, we'll publish your letters. So, anyway, your column, Kate, you were ranting away again. Oh, no,
I leave the ranting up to you,
okay.
Ken.
Tell us about your column.
So my column this week was about the conservation work that farmers do. So obviously, this being a rural community, people are pretty familiar with what farming today involves. But I think that, in urban centers, or, people outside of a farming community, agriculture can have a bit of a bad rap. And there was a motion put forward so I guess, like Ken, I talked a little bit about something that was said in the House of Commons. There was a motion put forward by Martin Shields, who's a Conservative MP from Bow Valley. And his motion reads, "In the opinion of the House, the government should recognize that the ongoing contribution of ranchers and farmers as stewards of the land and conservationists is part of our history, proudly shared by all Canadians, and should consider establishing policies which would support and encourage the development of private farm and ranch land conservation and restoration projects. And I think that, while such a, if it were to be passed, such a motion, probably wouldn't make a big difference, but it would really help, publicize and recognize the work that's being done on farms and ranches across Canada. Small-scale projects that are being repeated over and over again, and I think that would be great for our rural communities and the people who are, on their own dime and on their own time are really stepping up to the benefit of all Canadians.
Now, I read the article, and I don't remember the exact figure, but what percentage of land is agricultural in Canada?
It is, I have it actually written down here, it is 6.5% of all of Canada's land is agricultural land, which is
that's
amazingly
low, isn't it?
Well, I guess there's not a lot of agriculture.
We're a big country.
Yeah.
We are.
We're a fair-sized country.
When you think about all of, the shield and the water and the Arctic, when you think about how the land that can be used for agriculture is a pretty narrow band, right along the Canada-U.S. border.
Yes, that's true.
When you think about how much of our country really can't be farmed,
I wonder how much of our land is taken up with cities and towns.
Well, if you look at that number, that 6% number came from the Census of Agriculture, and that percentage has been going down over the last, 2 census cycles. So every 5 years, the percentage has been declining, and that'll be urban sprawl. And of course, a lot of cities are located on prime agricultural land because that was a prosperous area.
Back to the sports scene, Owen. We've got a now famous person from Neepawa.
Seems like we're talking about Hall of Fames and Wall of Fames. Just everybody's famous in this town, it seems, right about now. Last week we talked about representatives going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. This week we have one individual going into the Brandon University Wall of Fame. Lorne Lagimodiere, gentleman who is going into BU for his time with and I didn't even realize this, Brandon University used to have a football program.
Yeah.
In the late 60s, early 70s, Lorne was a big part of that program. Several records for Brandon University, which still holds to this day, although it helps that the football program no longer exists. Makes it easier for records not to be broken. But most of us know Lorne for his long time working at NACI and coaching the football team. A lot of time and effort. It's almost like a Rudy story. His last year coaching the team, they ended up having a perfect season and winning the provincials. That's just the way you want things to end out. So it's well-deserved recognition. Yeah. I never had an opportunity to see Lorne or the teams in the prime, but it's wonderful to see that Brandon University is recognizing its history and putting him in there. Well-deserved.
Yeah, cool. Well, Lorne is also a member of Swamp Gas, is he not? Yes.
Yeah, multi-talented member of our community.
Yeah. Now, the Neepawa Natives, it's not hockey season, but there's hockey news. There's always hockey
We're still
news.
Talking hockey.
It's always hockey season, Ken.
Yeah.
Good. Off season, the MJHL had its draft last week. They made some rule changes. Neepawa Natives are getting ready for the upcoming season. They signed 3 players for the upcoming year. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. We got Benoit Mulbray out of St. Lazare, relatively local kid, plays for the Yellowhead Chiefs. As well, a couple Winnipeg kids, although there is a local connection with one of them, Troy Earl out of Winnipeg and Louis Nefrich out of Winnipeg as well. They're going to be playing. One of them, I'm sorry, I have to admit, I don't recall off the top of my head. One of them has family members with Neepawa roots. They're in and around the Neepawa area. So that's one set of season tickets that are going to be sold, perhaps. But these are good young players. Always good to see that type of development going on in the league. So it makes it very exciting to see what's going to be happening come training camp, because there's going to be some battles. There's only so many roster spots. There's a lot of talent out there that wants them.
Well, it's good that the young people, young men want to come and play in Neepawa, and we're hearing that over and over again. I'm sure there's players who say, nah, I don't want to play in Neepawa, but we hear that about other towns as well.
Yeah.
But we're hearing from a lot of young men who are saying, yeah, we want to play in Neepawa. I tested that out last winter several times with people. I talked to the parents and say to them, you know, glad that your son is here in Neepawa, and you know, hope you'll be back. And they all looked at me kind of aghast and said, well, of course we will. This is great. You know, we're talking about tourism a while ago, and a lot of people don't understand how well we're regarded. We're always better regarded outside the community sometimes than we regard ourselves. Anyway, local Cubs baseball. This is baseball season. They're gaining a bit of traction in the league now. They're doing a little better. They had a bit of a slow start, but they're doing okay now. Or
a little bit of a slow start. They went, if I remember correctly, they were 0-2-1 to start off, but they've been on a tear as of late. They've won their past 4 games. They had a game yesterday, Wednesday, that they were supposed to play in Portage against the unbeaten Portage Padres. It was rained out, though. Mother Nature decided it wasn't a baseball night.
There you go.
But the Cubs are really getting some excitement going. It's a great baseball to watch, so if people are interested in the Neepawa area, always best to go down there and watch it, because it's important. Don't take these things for granted. People seem to take them for granted, and then they're gone. The farmers, they got into the Hall of Fame, they don't exist anymore. And there's a reason for that, because they were taken for granted. The league was taken for granted. Let's give them the support they deserve, because they're working hard and they're representing the community, and that's the most important thing.
I saw at least one of the games. Who is the starting catcher, young Mr. Todrick? He's still in high school, is he not?
Oh yeah, high school kid, half the size of all the other players out there. But the thing is, though, when he was up at the plate, he was still knocking the skin off the ball there. He was getting on base, so there's a lot of young talent in this community.
Well, he's a pretty good hockey player, too. I think he's on the Neepawa Natives list for future considerations as well. So all-around athlete there. Up at the Yellowhead, lots of ripping and tearing going on. What have you seen up there with the boards and the renovations there?
Been up there a couple times and seen some of the work that's been going on. They're tearing out the boards. They're going to be putting in new boards. So they say they're safety boards. They're up to code. Not that the old ones were up to code. It's just, you know, they were up to code in 1972. These new ones are state-of-the-art. They're going to be amazing. They had to rip the old ones out. They had volunteers in from Kelwood, 1 or 2 from McCreary, because the boards are going to Kelwood now. They're going to be going in for their new rink that they're going to be building. So it was great. So many people out there doing this work, their own time, their own effort. It's really exciting. You know, the people who haven't been to the Yellowhead Arena in a long time, you go down there come the fall, you're not going to recognize it.
This is kind of a win-win. We've got 2 communities, you know, who are gaining something new.
That's right, Kate. Because of the tragedy, perhaps I shouldn't use the term tragedy. That's for something perhaps a little more serious. But the unfortunate circumstances of earlier this year, when Kelwood lost its skating rink due to a storm, roof collapsed in on itself. The community is rebuilding. They're going to make it bigger and better than ever. And any way that the Yellowhead could help out, they wanted to jump on board with that.
Well, that's pretty cool. The boards may have been up to code in 1971, but I have it on good authority those boards were actually salvaged out of the old arena, which was built in 1935.
Wow.
So some of those boards may have a lot of hockey history there. They've taken a few dings over the years. Anyway, Kate, tell us a little bit about our grad issue.
Yes, so this is one of the more exciting features that we put out each year, and this is our annual Class of 2017 edition. So if you would like to see all the kids that are graduating this year or a part of the Class of 2017, be sure to pick up your copy of the Neepawa banner, because we've got graduates from St. Rose to Carberry, Gladstone to Minnedosa, Erickson, really covering the whole region.
Good. Well, thank you both, and thank you to our viewers for watching this week for the story behind the stories. I'm Ken Waddell, publisher of the Neepawa Banner. Kate Jackman Atkinson is our editor. Our sports and news reporter is Owen Devereaux. So we're pleased to be here, and we hope that you give us feedback on what you've seen. Thank you very much for watching.